England get a wake-up call from Scotland. Alexander Isak shines at Euro 2020. Barcelona midfielder wants out. Arsenal prepare to splash the cash, and a transfer roundup, all coming up on today's OneFootball Daily News. As I'm your host, Angelina Kelly, let's get into it. First up, and all eyes were on England versus Scotland yesterday at Euro 2020 in an international game that almost has a local derby feel to it, as these two old enemies were set to do battle. Did we really get a battle? I wouldn't quite say so, as it did end 0-0 in not the most exciting of games. For Scotland, it was a big point, as this keeps them in the race to qualify for the knockout round of the Euros, and I think that out of the two teams, they will be the ones walking away with their heads held a little bit higher, and this was really reflected in the fans' reaction at full time. Steve Clarke really did get the best out of his players in what was a great response, considering they did lose their first game against the Czech Republic. This game, however, was nowhere near a smash and grab situation where they were just trying to get a point. Scotland were fighting until the final minute to get a win, and all in all, it was a good performance from them. For England, however, things weren't great. The fans were booing at full time, and upon reflection, I don't think things were as bad as people are making out right now, as all they have to do is beat the Czech Republic in their next game, and they will still finish top of the group. However, there are concerns more of beyond the group stage into the knockout rounds of the competition, and how this England team will truly face up against the likes of Belgium, France and Italy, etc. England was sluggish and they lacked real spark, and one player that really was highlighted was Harry Kane. I think in both games, to be honest, he hasn't really looked the brightest, and this may be a little bit concerning considering he has gone into the competition as the Premier League player with the most assists and most goals. However, I don't think England fans should be hitting the panic button, although I think a few already have. The main concern seems to be that perhaps Kane's mind is elsewhere, thinking about his career, as reports have come out stating that he has said he is willing to reunite with Mauricio Pochettino at PSG. Whether this is true or not, it doesn't really matter. I personally think that Kane is definitely focused on England, and this is simply a job for Gareth Southgate to make sure that he does have better service, and maybe he needs to bring a few more creative players into the starting 11, perhaps the likes of Jack Grealish or Jadon Sancho. In the other game in the group, it was the Czech Republic against Croatia, which ended in an exciting 1-1 draw. It was a great point for the Czech Republic, as they currently do sit top of Group D. However, for Croatia, things aren't looking great. For the first time since the 2006 World Cup, the 2018 World Cup runners-up have actually failed to win their first two opening games. So all this means is that Group D in the final match day is going to be very interesting indeed. Looking at the other Euro 2020 fixture from yesterday, and it was Sweden versus Slovakia. Sweden took another step closer to qualifying for the knockout round of the competition, and the star of the game was Alexander Isak. The fixture could have probably ended in a draw, as it took Sweden until 13 minutes before full time to get their goal, which of course was a penalty. It wasn't the most thrilling of games, but Sweden did probably have a few improvements compared to their game against Spain. But like I say, Isak was the main talking point. He more than earned his Star of the Match award on the night, and is just proving exactly why he has been dubbed as one of the most exciting young talents in Europe. There are so many young talents in this competition that really are putting on some great displays, but for me, Isak is just completely up there at the top, and it's no wonder that the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal are interested in the Real Sociedad player, who actually managed 17 goals in 34 appearances last season for the club. And for Real Sociedad, if anything, this could be a bit of a wake-up call to make sure they are working overtime on making sure he is still wearing their shirt next season. For Slovakia, the game ended a 6-match winning streak, and if anything, they will probably be feeling like they did really squander their chances, and they will certainly be keeping a close eye on the game between Spain and Poland today. And don't forget, you can find plenty more Euro content not only on the OneFootball app, but on the Volkswagen OneHub as well, so make sure you check them out. And if you're watching on YouTube, the links are just below this video. Our next story takes us to Barcelona, and according to Sports, one of their midfielders is desperately searching for the exit door, and it's Miralem Pjanic. So obviously, with the departure of Arturo Vidal, Arthur, Ivan Rakitic, Pjanic arrived at Barcelona expecting to kind of take over a role in midfield, and it hasn't quite happened. He's been pretty low down the pecking order for Ronald Koeman, with the likes of Frenkie de Jong, Pedri, Ricky Puig, Iyas Mariba all being in the mix alongside him, with some of them actually getting quite a lot more game time than him. However, whilst we haven't really seen the best of Pjanic in Spain, the 31-year-old is still a really good deep-line playmaker. You can argue that he doesn't really fit into Barcelona's style, but since he was so good at Juventus, it's understandable why some Italian clubs are interested in getting the player to make a move. So not only are Napoli and Inter Milan interested, also reports do state that Chelsea and PSG have their eye on the player, but it looks like he could actually be heading back to Juventus. Of course, Max Allegri is back at the helm. He's apparently a really big fan of Pjanic. He feels that he's a vital piece of the puzzle, and reports also state that with the likes of Aaron Ramsey and Adrien Rabiot potentially departing from the club, there is definitely space for Pjanic. Reports state that the deal could be a 2-year-long loan spell, but Barcelona are apparently saying that they are not willing to pay his wages. So there's still definitely some work to be done here. Regarding Barcelona, I don't think that they'll be missing the midfielder. Like I say, he's not really had much game time, and we could definitely be seeing him playing back in black and white next season. Next up, and going over to Arsenal now, where according to 90 Minutes, the club are reportedly willing to spend £250 million this summer in a bid to turn things around for the club and to give Mikel Arteta a fighting chance of rebuilding his squad. According to the report, the club have been given the green light by the owners to go ahead and spend all of this money, and it just seems like such a large sum, especially when you consider that so many clubs are struggling due to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. But the main question is, who will Arsenal actually realistically be signing? As let's face it, it wasn't a great season. They don't have European football, so it may be a little bit more difficult to recruit players. The players that the club are interested in will reportedly all be quite young players, and this is the main motivation for the club to be spending so much money, as if they're younger, they will have chance to improve their game, their value will rise, and Arsenal can then potentially in the future sell them on. Looking at their roster, and according to the report from 90 Minutes, it seems like Arsenal are going to be interested in a goalkeeper, a fullback, a centre-back, and 2 central midfielders. Some of the names in the mix have been the likes of James Maddison, Ben White, etc. And whilst Arsenal may want these players, the big question is, will these players want to move to Arsenal? And last but not least, we have our transfer roundup. This is where I take a look at some of the other news and transfers going on in the footballing world. And first up, Scotland player Pjanic is allegedly set to pen a new 5-year deal with Arsenal. According to Le Parisien, PSG are going to renew their interest in Manchester United player Paul Pogba. Sky Sports state that up to 8 candidates are being considered for the Everton manager role, with Rafael Benitez and Nuno Espirito Santo the 2 favourites for the job. And lastly, the latest from Copa América. Argentina got a really important 1-0 victory over Uruguay. Meanwhile, Chile got a 1-0 victory over Bolivia. And on the score sheet was Ben Brereton. So the player was actually born in Stoke-on-Trent. His mother and grandfather are Chilean. That is why he's playing for the national team. He doesn't actually speak Spanish, but so far in the tournament, he's been playing pretty well. So that's it for today's OneFootball Daily News. As always, check out all the other content that we've got here. And until next time, I will see you all later.